Live on stage, the sound.
Orlando!
So, is they ready?
Yes!
The sound.
Orlando!
You know?
What is going on, party people? What is going on? This is the Sound of Orlando show with your boy Rome, live and direct from the heart of Orlando, man. And what we do here is we talk about this thing of ours called hip hop culture and how it is the crossroads where a lot of things kind of mesh. You have people from all walks of life, all kinds of different inspirations, all kinds of backgrounds, and we meet in hip hop. We come together to not only contribute but to celebrate as well. This is one of those moments. I want to send a shout out to our sponsor of the night, which is the legendary DJ Jesse Jazz. And he is not only a legendary DJ, he's a legendary promoter in the city, but he's also a legendary graphic artist in the city. If you don't know by now, you better recognize. Hit up 5 Star Graphics if you need any kind of graphic design, artwork, cards, printing, whatever you need. He could supply it. He's the man in our city. We're going to get, right into it in just a couple seconds. Just want to send a shout out to all those who are supporting us. Tomorrow night, we will be live at Will's Pub for the premiere of my brother from another mother's band. Blue Streak Mamas will be performing live at Will's Pub. I will be hosting and DJing throughout the night. Looking forward to that, man, getting out of this quarantine business and, doing what we do best, which is serve the people. It is a sold out event. So you will hear about it. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait to rock that. And can't wait to see my man, do his thing on stage as well. Shout out to Seth One, my man Craig, all the band members in Blue Streak Mamas. It's going to be a great event. Hope to see you there. Okay. Now, we're going to get right into it, man. This next guest that I have on tonight, man, he is completely and utterly amazing. When we're talking about maintaining who you are as a person, you can't think of any other cat than this one I'm bringing on tonight. He was a part of the legendary Poor Righteous Teachers. Their whole thing was to not only teach, educate, and bring a different look to what we call hip hop. Their sound was a mixture of not only hip hop, but you could hear, the West Indian influence. Shout out to all my Jamaicans, Haitians, and such, my Trinis, representing New Jersey, New Jerusalem. Okay, this is a big thing to have on tonight, man, because, man, do we need that voice right now, considering everything we got going on in the world? He personifies that to the fullest. Great brethren, pleasure to have him on the show. Give it up one time for my brother, Wise Intelligent. What's good, my brother?
Space, what's good?
Man, welcome to the show, my brother, man. Pleasure to have you. Welcome to Orlando.
Thanks for having me.
Man, for those that may not know, your story and how you got into hip hop and how Poor Righteous Teachers was even established, can you briefly kind of go into how you bought into this thing of ours called hip hop?
Well, like most young black males in the inner city in the early 80s, 80. I'm actually on a yacht. We're about to disembark. So,
okay.
That's the anchor going. So, but yeah, young black males in the inner city, 1982. 80, early 80s, 80, 81, 82. Hip hop spoke to us. They spoke to us, so we gravitated to it early because it was the language that we spoke in the community. We can understand and relate to the stories that were being conveyed by rappers, and not just the rap, not just rap, hip hop in general, graffiti art, breakdancing, graffiti art. It all gave us a platform for expression, for expressing ourselves in a place in a space where our voices had historically been marginalized. So hip hop was that platform for us to speak to the world,
Right.
unabridged.
Right. So you're in New Jersey, and shout out to Jersey, um, because some of our greats have represented out of Jersey. What part of Jersey, for those that may not know, um, did you come from?
Trenton, New Jersey, the capital.
Trenton. Trenton. Shout out to all my peoples in Trenton that know what time it is. What was that like, being introduced to hip hop out there?
Man, it was dynamic. It was dynamic. It was at a time. It was around the same time that we were dealing with the tail end of white flight, suburban sprawl, and the redlining of the Black community. So poverty was being concentrated at all-time highs. Deprivation was acute. So hip hop gave us something, to look to for hope and inspiration. So it was a state of deprivation, man. Trenton is 7.5 square miles. 71% of the high school students are living below the poverty line. So that's the backdrop, for my introduction to hip hop.
Right, right. Um, there were a lot of groups during that time that, and when I say a lot, I'm being very generous, but that said, you know what, these lyrics, every bar has to matter. And you're from that lineage of speaking truth to power, if you will. Um, what was that like, trying to find the music that would fit the message to keep people, or to attract people to listen? Because you guys had some amazing music. Talk about that production that went into it, similar to like Public Enemy. Their production, allowed you to listen to what every word that was being said, and you guys are similar in that you had the right music for those lyrics. Talk about what went into the idea of establishing Poor Righteous Teachers.
Yeah, well, the first rule for us in hip hop, the first rule was it had to be fresh, it had to be
Right.
dope, it had to be fly, so
Right.
it had to meet that standard first,
Right.
And then the conveying of whatever message you wanted to articulate, so we wanted to be dope, and along with being dope, you also had to be original, and that added to your dopeness. Part of being fresh, dope, and fly was being original. Hip hop, like I said, is a platform for self-expression. So expressing yourself is key, and in expressing yourself, you're going to be original because it's you. You're bringing you to the table. So that was the rule for us. Be who
Right.
we are, which is to be original. And keep it dope, keep it fresh.
Right. Where are the rest of the members from, and how you guys all came up together, or was it constructed, kind of meeting each other randomly? How did you guys collectively get together?
We're all from Trenton. We're all from Trenton, New Jersey. Father Shaheed is from the east side, and Culture Freedom from the north side. And I moved into Divine Land from the north side as well. So I moved into Divine Land as a youth. Me and Culture had known each other since we were 11, 12 years
Right.
old. It's 12, something like that. And we later met Shaheed, and and we rocked. And then me and Culture had started a group early on, and then we were looking for a DJ, and Shaheed, Shaheed was the guy for us. He was the guy.
Right. So you guys get together, and you guys were on a very, as far as hip hop is concerned, legends are on Profile Records. Talk about establishing that connection to be your I mean, we all knew if you looked as a DJ, you looked at that Profile record, most of the time, if not all the time, you knew whatever hip hop was going to be on that, it's going to be dope. Talk about that connection and how you guys were able to, on your first outing, get with Profile Records.
Well, Profile Records, we released our first single, which was a 3-song single on Northside Records, a label out of our own community, out of Donnelly Homes, low-income housing projects, Divine Land, you know. So we released it independently. We shopped it to radio, you know, we pushed it. Red Alert played the record. Red Alert played the record. It was a wrap when Red Alert played the record too. So after that, you know, Red Alert also took the record directly to Profile representatives, and they hit us, and that the rest is history.
Wow, that's
so
awesome.
Red Alert, you know, it's Red Alert. Red Alert is I mean, so many artists are forever indebted to DJ Red Alert. You know?
Man, shout out to DJ Red Alert. That's an awesome story. To your point, he has put so many people on in that regard. If he liked it, the world liked it, and that's awesome. Now let's get into the joint everyone hears first, which is Rock This Funky Joint. That song was so epic. Talk about, you know, the idea or the inspiration that went into that record. That record was on repeat for years for us in Orlando. So talk about what kind of inspiration went into that.
Well, you know, it was it came. We were listening to samples. Our routine was to listen to samples and loops, and figure out what was popular. You know, what we liked, what we didn't like. So one day, producer Tony the Pure, in the lab, and he's playing records. He played a "Slipping in the Darkness," the War "Slipping in the Darkness" sample. And I immediately start spitting the rhyme, the first verse of Rock This Funky Joint. So like, this record right here. And Culture was like, absolutely. And Tony D's like, y'all like this? He didn't get it at first. You know, he's like, y'all like this? Y'all like this sample? And he's like, yes, absolutely. Loop that. Let's go.
Wow.
So we looped it. We looped it, and the title of the record and everything, Rock This Funky Joint, came from Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing film. When the mayor go in the store, he's in the Korean corner store, and he asked him for the Miller High Life, and he's like, they asked him Miller High Life, and they said they don't have any. And he's like, y'all better get some Miller High Life up in this funky joint.
I remember that.
Right. So coaches started playing. We was just playing around, and he's like, why is I don't know what else you started thinking about doing, but all I know is you better rock this funky joint. And he's just playing, he's playing around, and so I wrote to it. I wrote to that end, and and that was it.
Crazy, man, crazy.
Shaheed facilitated the cut, all the scratches, everything. Shaheed did, created the hook, the chorus with the scratches. Shaheed, phenomenal DJ and producer. So, it was chemistry at that point. It was just synergy coming into play.
Wow, amazing story. You guys went on to do. I mean, it just seemed like the hits kept on coming. That first album was just a complete classic, and the content, what you were talking about, was giving insight to, you, like I said, you had a lot of artists out there that were talking about issues, but you had a certain, it was, at minimum, like you said, growing up in Trenton, but it was unique to you, and you talked about things other people weren't talking about. If you can, kind of describe what that was like, to know that the world is hearing that with that music and hearing those lyrics, man, they're so powerful. What was that like when you first started seeing it being played all over the country?
You know, it was surreal. It was surreal. You know, we corner kids, man.
Right.
You know, we kids from the corner. So when you hear it, you know, it's an out of body experience. You know.
Right.
And from that moment on, we were on go. We were just on go, man. We were reveling.
What? How was Profile as a label for you guys, considering that at the time you had, you know, people like Special Ed and the like on that label, but you guys were the only ones, you know, speaking the way y'all was speaking. What was that like? Did the label support you in that regard? Do you feel like they gave you the power you needed to kind of get that message out?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, here's my suggestion. Put your phone in the pocket. Drop like man, drop it.
I'm good.
Okay.
You said absolutely not.
Nah, not really. You know what I mean? Not the message. You know, they you know, they were a corporation, you know, and it's a commercial enterprise. They didn't understand. You know, they didn't understand what we were going through as artists. You know, as human beings. You know, they didn't understand what we were going through as human beings.
Right.
You know, so that being the case, we were getting shorted on marketing dollars, on promotion, on radio promotion, and everything. You know, we were getting shorted because our message was for them it was commercially defective, but for us it resonated with the community we represented. You know?
Exactly, and it was the right thing to say. It was the right way to approach music.
All right, thank you. Drop some.
Yeah, it was the right way to approach the music, man. You guys.
Yeah, I'll give a couple $100 credit for next time you come. We're an hour late, so I got $200 credit for this.
Hold on 1 second, bro.
You're good, brother. We're on right now with Wise Intelligent. Obviously, he is mobile at the moment, man. So we appreciate his time. We're thankful that he's joining the show tonight. And no, you good, brother. You good, man. You good. We appreciate you. So yeah, I just, you know, if we could cover that a little bit more in depth, what it's like to be an artist and not have the support of your label like that. And then maybe seeing other artists that are getting the support while you don't.
You know, it was something that being the valet here. I know, but I was gonna shut at 8, right? I know we'd be back. But yeah. But so you know, sorry about that, guy.
No, you good, brother.
So you know, I expected it, but if we're in business, we're in business, you know, so we expect you to do certain things. We expect you to live up to your obligations of the agreement, you know. So when that didn't happen, then it created issues, it created tensions, you know, but I expected them to maneuver the way they maneuvered. After a while, you know, I understood what it was. You know, we were young coming in, but you learn quick. You know, I'm a quick study. You know, so I didn't really sweat it.
Right.
You know, I didn't really sweat it because I understood what it was. You know, I know what we're dealing with. I know what kind of power structure we're dealing with, and I know what the sentiments of the people are. All right, Ray. Yes. Yeah. So, you know, I knew what it was from the rip. We dealt with it. We worked it out. We moved on. You know.
Right.
That's just how it goes, I guess. You know, we know what they were. We know what we were saying. how what we were saying would affect them. You know, we knew
Right.
that. You know, so and it's just, you know, and then you see it now. You know, it's just the irony for me is now we're in this whole everybody for social justice, everybody for change, and you know, support black business, support black that. You know, from the corporations. You know, even the music industry, you got record companies putting up $100 million for social justice and change and racial equity and all of those things. You know, but at the end of the day, this is what we was telling y'all 20 years ago. That's why I know that they're trying to commercialize that same movement again. You know, they're trying to commercialize it again and get off easy, you know?
Right. You're absolutely right. You know, when you guys were able to make some classic albums with them, and then I remember this conference. It was you, KRS-One, Chuck D, a bunch of leaders, and you were talking about the industry, and you were talking about, you know, a lot of the injustices and things that are being propagated on us. Can you talk about what that you know, conference was like, to be around people that wanted to make a change that represented our community? Can you talk about that a little bit?
It's always good to be in good company, you know?
Right.
It's always good to be in good company, you know? So, and PE, Chuck is like the general, you know what I mean? Chuck is like the big brother we all want, you know, for me, you know, and the general, you learn from the general just from being in his presence, you know? So, that's what it was like to me. It was like being a private soldier amongst generals. You know,
Right.
A lot of times I'm the youngest amongst the pioneers in the culture. You know, so
Right.
so a lot of times I'm at the feet of the elders in that situation, and that's what it's like for me.
Was there any pushback from that conference of bringing all these great minds together and talking about changing the dynamics of how Black music is portrayed in our world? Because you guys were tackling a lot of issues. Did you guys get any pushback from that?
It's always pushback. You know, it's always pushback, whether you can see it or not, whether it's implicit or overt. You know, it's there because that's how the power structure works. You know, the power structure is the power structure because it moves implicitly and overtly, you know, but the implicit side of it is more effective and more damaging than the overt side of it, you know. So they'll do subtle things, you know, the aggression becomes passive. And like I said, you know, marketing dollars, things of that nature, you know, shifting the playlist, shifting the paradigm, you know, moving resources from particular brands of hip hop content to other brands of hip hop content exclusively, you know. So we end up in this paradigm where all the music sounds alike. You know, that's an example of passive aggression in the power structure, from the power structure, you know.
Right. I was talking to Speech from Arrested Development, and he was describing to me when they were at their peak, it seemed like they were completely removed from radio along with others, and you know, they were removed from a lot of different platforms, and it felt like there was a deliberate removal, to your point, of taking artists that were speaking about positive reflections of people of color and replacing it with just the negative. And we see that today. Do you feel like the way music is right now, in comparisons to where it was back then when it first kind of really started, that it's history repeating itself, or do you feel like we're in a new place where they're doing that now?
I feel like it was definitely deliberate. It's always deliberate. You know, all that is planned. They don't do anything by accident or mistake. It's very intentional. And as far as things recurring, you know, I think we're stuck in this commercial void. You know, in a commercial vortex, if you will,
Right.
where, you know, we're making money is given the highest value in the art form and the culture when it comes to mainstream. You know,
Right.
in the mainstream, that's the case. You know, however, hip hop is as hip hop as it's always been. There's still conscious artists. There's still politically oriented MCs. There's still b-boys. There's still graffiti artists doing their thing all over the world. You know, still DJs cutting back to back on 1200s with mixes. You know, hip hop is still vibrant. You know, but the mainstream, if we're allowing the mainstream to dictate what hip hop is or isn't, then in that case, yes, you know, it's changed. You know, it's changed drastically. You know, but for me, the mainstream don't dictate to me. So
Right.
the mainstream is the mainstream, and they do what they do with it. But yes, they shift the paradigm. They invested in a particular brand of hip hop content, sex, money, murder, in particular. You know, and that's where we are. You know.
Right. When you hear the impact on music and people of color and all of the negative connotations that are involved in that, how does that make you as an artist feel about, you know, to your point, people are money hungry. They will, you know, they'll sell out for a few bucks just as long as they can, you know, get their, you know, whatever. Do you feel like the war or the battle is lost in, you know, in like war, you know, you got a battle for the hearts and minds. Do you feel like the hearts and minds have been lost to money in this money orientated, you know, society that claims that it's hip hop, right? Like everything is just, they call it hip hop, but it's strictly about money.
Right. Right. You know, and it's the thing to the artists, and some of their some of the agents and agencies that they rely on to make money have this idea that it's about money. But for the power structure, it's always about control. It's always about control. So in that end, yes, they're winning. They won a battle because they're controlling the narrative. You know,
Right.
and in controlling the narrative, you control behavior. You know,
Right.
and so that's where we are. You know, but you know, overall, you know, when you look at how they use music, how they use it, and how they use hip hop and television and film and everything else, you know, they use it to manipulate public opinion, to kind of mobilize or regiment public opinion for or against particular ideas, beliefs, policies, groups, populations, countries, or whatever the enemy or hero is. You know, so yeah, that's what they do. So to the artist is, you know, coming from that backdrop that I laid out concerning Trenton, that's pretty much the 90% of the rappers' story. You know, so coming from that, it's easy to it's not a stretch to assume that money would be the focus because you're coming from a state of poverty, deprivation. You know, so it's easy to sell that. It's easy to sell the idea of riches and wealth to poor people. You know,
Right.
It's easy to push that. You know, so that's how they're controlling the narrative and the behavior, you know, simultaneously and making money off it. So it's like the commercialization of pathologies, and then they commercialize the pathologies, market them so well that the pathologies are then perceived as culture. So they start to associate pathological behavior, even parasitical behavior with culture, you know, and that's not culture, it's pathology commercialized pathology. And so we end up here with this idea that, you know, money should have the highest value in the paradigm, in the culture, and in the craft.
Right. do you feel like there's a space for people like yourself who have made their life's mission to empower, uplift, um, you know, the idea or the notion of knowledge, wisdom, understanding, to bring the value back? Do you feel like there's a space for you guys to continue to push that message and maybe affect the narrative for the generations preceding you?
Yes, absolutely. I think that I think that we just need to create our own platforms, our own platforms online, our own social media networks, our own podcasts, our own blockchains. We need to develop these things and push our ideas, concepts, culture, and narrative, in these spaces and places, repeatedly. I mean, we need to brand these ideas,
Right.
we need to brand these ideas, and that's something that we haven't been doing, really marketing the ideas as a collective, as a movement.
Right.
We've been basically functioning in the individual space, it's
Right.
like the open hand versus the closed fist, when it
Right.
comes to pushing the narratives, so,
Right.
but it's possible.
What are you inspired by right now? What are you listening to? What is giving you hope for this new year, new generation? What are some of the things that you could describe that are kind of making you be like, okay, we're in good hands moving forward?
My sons, my sons. I have two sons, and they love hip hop, but they don't do hip hop. They're more on the science side of it, of the reality.
Right.
So they give me hope because they're looking at other ways to advance the same narrative, other ways to push the narrative and ingrain in the narrative in the culture. Like my 15-year-old, he's a self-taught computer programmer and code writer. He writes script. He writes code. He's a programmer.
Dope.
So he just sparks. He sparks inspiration all the time. When we have conversations, he takes me deep. He's put me up on so many new things. I mean, everything from the blockchain, NFTs. He was talking about these things 3 years ago. He's 15. He's 16 this year. He was 13.
Dope.
So, and my eldest son, forensic science major. So he's into the biology of things, biology, forensics, and getting real deep into the layers, So they give me hope, man. They give me inspiration because they're not trendy. They're not following all the fads. They're not easily led into the wrong direction.
Right.
They're innovative and they're disruptive at the same time. Just like hip hop.
Right.
That's what that's what gives me hope. Not just with my sons, with a lot of young people that I work with. Through our foundation, through the Rap Snacks Foundation, Boss Up. Young people that I meet on HBCU campuses, high schools, and community organizations. These young people are very innovative and very disruptive. Just like hip hop, hip hop was the first Uber. Hip hop was the first blockchain. Hip hop was the first cryptocurrency. Hip hop was the first Amazon. Why? Because hip hop said, okay, you're not going to let us play in your venue. We're going to plug into the street like we're going to play in the park. We can't put our art up in your museum. We're going to put it on a train. We're going all city. So we were very disruptive, We couldn't get in the dance troops. So we would dance in the subways. We would dance put on cardboard box on the corner. You know, we would create concerts out of nothing. You know, we created hip hop out of nothing. Okay, we can't afford instruments. We can't learn to play instruments. We can't pay to learn how to play drums and guitars and pianos. So we're gonna learn how to sample. We're gonna sample. We're gonna make beats. We're gonna do it like that. We're gonna chop beats up on drum machines, and we're gonna go. We created a whole industry. You know, look at all the innovation that came out of all the industry and economics and business that came out of that innovation, out of that disruption. You know, turntables that can actually be pulled back without jumping. You know, fortifying needles. You know, all of that. You know, that's all hip hop's innovation. That's all out of that part. All that came out of that part. All out of that disruptive reality, that disruptive mind state. You know, even with fashion and clothing. You know, this is how we have to look. This is how you have to dress. Go ahead. No, I'll dress like this wherever I want to go. I'm going to dress like this. This is who I am. You know, this is my style. This is the way I do it. You know, that was very disruptive. And now you see Balenciaga. You know, Balenciaga bags. $4,000 Balenciaga bag with graffiti all over the bag. You know, Gucci. You know, Dapper Dan to head up his Harlem location. You know, Dapper Dan. You know, Dapper Dan. That's hip hop. That's
hip hop. Yes.
You know, so it's like, so that's what I mean. We've been disrupted. We've been disrupting things before Silicon Valley. You know, but the problem has been that innovation, that disruption was never embraced by our community, by the guards at the gate of the community, by the administrations in the community, the agents and agencies of the community. They never embraced hip hop. They rejected it. They called it vandalism. They called it thugging, and they called it everything that it wasn't. You know, and that allowed others to come up and set up economies around the innovation and the disruption, and make billions of dollars off of hip hop culture and black music, and none of that money come back to the community in any substantial way. You know, so for me, these young people today, they're very innovative. They're very disruptive. You know, they're thinking out of the box, and they just need to have the narrative connected, the dots connected to the narrative. You know, so that they can then create the resource capture movements and formations in the community to trap the resources in the community before they extract it out. You know, it's like in the not-for-profit world, community activism, they consider our communities under-resourced communities, but our communities are not under-resourced communities. They're over-extracted communities. You know, we have resources. We have all types of resources. We have $1.2 trillion in collective buying power, but it gets extracted out of the community at the point of purchase because we don't own, produce, or sell, manufacture anything that we're buying when we buy. So that money leaves the community at the point of purchase, right? So then we have cultural resources, music. You know, every genre of so-called American music is actually black music. We fathered and mothered every genre of music here, you know, and that's over $143 billion industry a year for this economy, you know, $143 billion globally. So none of that money is really coming back to the community in any real or substantial way.
Amazing.
So, you know, we have to trap that. You know, we have to trap that. You look at the NBA and the NFL, and it's like we're talking about 80% of the athletes are black, but less than 1%, less than half of a percentage point comes back to the black community in terms of business receipts, right? So we're not making any money off of that, really, you know. And then the athletes leave the community because the community doesn't have the lifestyle, support the lifestyle that they need to live, you know. And just like academic genius, you know, academic genius, all the innovation, the scientists, the lawyers, all the professionals, they leave.
Right.
And they leave because We don't have the corporations and companies inside the community, the agencies that can support their talent, their skill sets, their base of knowledge, their fields, so they go elsewhere and end up helping to build other communities with the resources that came out of our community.
Right.
So we have to create resource capture movements to track those resources in the community long enough for them to benefit the community.
Right. What do you think? How do we get there logistically? What needs to happen so that we can begin to have this dialogue on a national scale, on a community on a community scale? What can be done? Because everything you said is right on the money. What can we do as a community and as a people to create this? I say it all the time. We don't talk enough as a people. We're not communicating to us. We communicate at each other. We communicate past each other, but we're not talking. We're not talking to one another. We're not listening. And like you said, a lot of it is the control because people, those narratives are being parroted when you try to have these conversations with people. They're just parroting talking points that support the bottom line or the foolishness that continues to go on. What say you about what are some of the solutions to get to what you're talking about?
I give you some examples of what we're doing, and then anybody that hear this or is listening, they can, assess for themselves, if it's something that they can do or something, or if there's some alignment or synergy in what they're already doing that resonates with what I'm going to say. So one of the things that we do is we develop an entrepreneurship, financial empowerment, and community economic development programs centered around building more assets in the community that we control. It's about controlling the internal markets of the community. For me, so we develop these programs with HBCUs, with community organizations, with middle and high school, and on a lot of different fronts. So, for example, one program that we have is it's called Innovation Cafe. Innovation Cafe, the cafe on the HBCU campus, where the students that participate in the program actually develop the product that are sold in the cafe. It's from idea, from conception to retail, any idea, because the aim for us is to create more product, more manufacturers and producers of the products that we consume. You go in the corner store, you have 500 different products in that corner store. We own none of the product. And today we don't even own the corner store. We used to, but today we don't even own the corner store. It's a foreign entity controlling that as well. So everything from supply chain and logistics, to manufacturing, producing, and retail. We build on that with the Innovation Cafe so that we can then mobilize these skill set into the community as resource capture agent or agent. And that's one program. And we also, in terms of financial empowerment and getting us to understand how economy works and how to control more of our buying power, more of our discretionary income, and how to manage our money properly. We have to understand how economy works. So we have a app called Stock Boss Up that actually onboards beginners, in the stock market. It's a free non-subscription based app that teaches the novice how to invest in the stock market, how to build wealth. in the stock market. So it's like a social media investment platform. So if you can imagine Robinhood meets Instagram, the mashup, so
Dope.
you download the app, you create a profile just like you would on Instagram, and then you get $1 million worth of simulated money. It follows the stock market in real time, and you can follow people, you can share posts about businesses, anything, articles, YouTube clip, just like you would on Facebook or anything like that, and and what happens is that the unique thing about the app is, the algorithm, the way we designed the algorithm is that the top performing portfolios will trend to the top of your feed. So what you see at the top of your feed is only the top performers. So they're winning. They're winning all the time. Some of our top performers are outperforming the market by 650%. That's insane gains. So if you cut and paste their portfolio into your portfolio, then your portfolio is winning. Now, if you transfer that to reality in real life, say you wanted to invest $1,000 in the stock market, invest it in those companies, and you want to get those gains. That's the gains you're going to get, 650%. Overall, the average user on the app is outperforming the S&P 500. Our average user averaged 33% return, whereas the S&P 500 averaged 28% in the last year. Our top 10% is seeing 120% plus. So the algorithms are working, the concept is working, the proof of concept is there. People are learning, they're teaching each other how to invest without having to spend a lot of money to learn. You don't have to go to the Grover's guys. Let's let the community teach the community. So that's how the app works. So
what is the name of the app for those that want to join the app?
Stock Boss Up, one word, Stock Boss Up, STOCKBOSSUP. It's on it's at Google Play. It's at the iPhone, the Apple Store as well. So that's two things that it's so many things that we've been doing and working on, to mobilize the people in ways that have immediate impact on their lives, as individuals. The aim is to help us buy some of our time back. We sell so much of our time away for so little. We end up working just enough to go back to work,
Man.
And our time is being consumed in all of that. We don't really have time to do what we really desire to do, and a lot of times what we desire to do is what we should be doing, because that's the thing that the community is going to get the most return out of from every individual.
Right. Man, I'm so, dude, I say this all the time, that the idea, the concept of a job robbing you of all of your time, so much so you don't have time to think, which a lot of the money and wealth begin with ideas and thinking freely and not being consumed by regiment and having to always be there for everyone else. I'm using, i.e., the job, and having that time, because that's why they're so quick to give us 20 years, 30 years for minor offenses, because they know the less time we have, in turn, the less powerful we are as humans.
Absolutely.
So however they can shave time off here and there, get 8 hours off you, get 12 hours off of you, you're going to be too tired to be thinking about being an entrepreneur. I don't know how many people I speak to that man, ain't got time for that, man. And they're all, as a result, they're easily led into the easy, quick, rich schemes that require no thinking or no ideas.
Right. And the crazy thing about that is, you know, when we look at, all right, Poor Righteous Teachers dropped the New World Order album, our fourth studio album in 1996, right?
Yes.
1996, we dropped that album. Amazon IPO'd 1997, a year after, right? $100 in Amazon at that IPO. I think it was trading at $18 a share.
Wow.
$87,000, like 100, yeah, $146,187 since then. That's what $100 would be, right? $10,000 would be 12 million. 10,000 would be 12 million today. From the time we dropped our fourth album till today, that's what those two investments in Amazon would have returned you. You know, and that's the thing. So we don't have to be an entrepreneur. We just have to really understand. We don't all have to be entrepreneurs. We just all have to understand how the economy works. You know, and understand how it works. We can extract what we need out of it. You know, the matrix works. You go in the matrix if you need, then you dip out. You know.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We lost you on that last little bit. Yeah, we're here. I lost you on that last little bit.
Okay, I'm in a parking lot right now. It's like a bomb shelter.
Okay.
So my reception is definitely going to be shoddy for a second.
You said about being an entrepreneur. Not everyone has to be an entrepreneur, and you're right in the action of an entrepreneur, you know, having a business. But part of what I think sometimes gets lost is the idea of what an entrepreneur mentally is. They're free. They think freely.
And they think freely. And when you think freely, the spirit of entrepreneurship is finding creative ways to solve problems. You know, that's what entrepreneurship is ultimately, you know.
Right. And so if we've all thought of that, if we all thought about life that way, to your point, we would be more attracted to the idea of freeing ourselves from the matrix, if you will, feeling like we have to, you know, do what everyone tells us to do versus what we want to do or need to do. You know, I'm a big believer in everyone has a gift, and they've come here with, you know, a certain blueprint that the next person doesn't have. And, you know, you hear this saying all the time, your job was one thing. All you got to do is one thing. And, you know, we're all in battles. We're all in wars for everyone to do that one thing. Like, there's so many distractions. There's so many things that take you away from the one job you had to do. And that was it. You came here on this planet to do one job, one thing. And you put it off. You said it was money, it was vacations, it was all this other stuff, you know, and you just have one job to do. And how many people find it most difficultly hard to do that one job? And that's why I said being free. You know, that's why I feel like during slavery, they didn't care about us reading. They cared about us sharing it. Because one smart person is going to create several more smart people. You know? Absolutely. And I love what you're talking about, man, because, you know, we as a collective, we need to be sharing these ideas. We need to be, you know, supporting what you're doing and you know, talking to each other about all the strides we are making as a collective, so we can all be supportive of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We have to share the information. That's right. That's something that we pride ourselves on. Each one teach one, right?
Right. Are you still doing music? And if so, where can we find your music at?
Yes. You can find my music on Spotify, Amazon. All of my latest stuff is available. You know, and I actually have a project that I finished in 2019, but the pandemic kind of derailed a lot of my momentum. So I got caught up in a lot of other things that was forced by the pandemic.
Right.
But I do have an entire project that I need to just go ahead and release. I released a series. It's a 7-album series. I'm at the 6th album now. I've released. It's called Back to School. The series is called Back to School. So I've released first period, second period, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and fifth period. Now I'm releasing sixth period and seventh period soon. So yeah.
Well, I'm with 98.5 The Wire in Orlando, one of the only stations in Orlando that plays real hip hop and is not connected to the corporate matrix. We will definitely play your music, send it along. We'll definitely support it because we're all about playing music that tells the entire story. And we definitely will support you.
I appreciate you for that.
Yeah. And, one last question, because I don't want to keep you too much longer. If you had anything to say, not only to our city, but to anybody listening right now, considering what all is going on with they're trying to stop us from voting. They're shooting us left and right. You see what's going on, and we're dealing with the pandemic. If you had anything to say right now to the people, then what would it be and why?
Everything the village needs is already in the village. That's what I would say. Everything the village needs is already in the village. So turn to the village, turn to the village. We need to connect. We need to stay connected. We need to, like I said, we need to be intentional and deliberate about the education of our children. We need to be deliberate about the financial well-being of our communities, about the even the self-inflicted internal issues that take place as a result of all of the compounded oppression. So we need to stick together. We need to, and I know that's been said so many times over and over again all the time, but we need to focus on the village, man. Focus on the village. Build stronger individuals, stronger families, stronger communities. And that's something that we've been doing. We've been doing as much as we can do. We've been trying to play our role, and we're working with whoever out there that that's about this work and share our mission statement. So.
Well, anytime you're in Orlando, my brother, you're a family. You're welcome here, brother. And once this pandemic clears up, a little bit more, where there's more performances and everybody kind of feels comfortable coming down here, brother, we'd love to have you. We love your music. We love you as a person that has contributed to the betterment and upliftment of our people. If there's anything Orlando could do to support you, let us know. You're always welcome back on the show, my brother. And
absolutely, that's great. I appreciate you. It's nothing. I live in Miami now, so I'm like 3 hours away, right? 3 hours, 30 minutes away. So let's do something.
And like I said, man, you got my email address. Send that music over, brother. I will run it next week. So
will do. It's coming.
All right. Give it up one time for our legend, our warrior, our soldier out there in the struggle, fighting for our people. Give it up one time for Poor Righteous Teacher's very own Wise Intelligent, brother. Thank you for coming on the show, my brother.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Man.
Thank you. Peace and love.
Peace and love, my brother. Man, what else can you say when a brother like that comes on and just drops bombs on top of your head? I mean, it was amazing conversation. First time me meeting him, and look what happens. I mean, we just talk like some human beings, and that's what you want. Shout out to my man, Sep One. You damn right. That's one of the mentors, brother. You know, to have that brother on tonight was a definite blessing. Man, you gotta let that breathe for a minute, man. Sound of Orlando show, man. It's hip hop, baby. It's what we do out here, man. You don't know? Ask somebody, man. It's what we doing out here, man. It's your boy Rome. Tomorrow we gonna tear that thing down. Shout out to Will's Pub. Shout out to Black Street Mamas. You already know this is what we doing in the city. Monday night, I got the legendary on a late night edition of the Soul Show. DJ Nasty Beat Makers. So there's always that. Holla!
Live on stage. That sound.
Orlando.
So, is they ready?
Yes.
That sound.
Orlando.
You know.